All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another MakeCode Arcade Advanced stream. I'm Richard, and also at Richard on the forums.
I'm Daryl at Darzu on the forums.
I'm Joey at JWonderl on the forums.
I'm Shannon at Shakao on the forums.
Daryl, you came up with the system.
I know. I didn't have Mixer open, so I was panicked because I couldn't find the order.
For those at home, we introduce ourselves based off the order of the things in Teams. We use Teams to do these streaming things together. Cool. So what are you doing today, guys?
Well, we had an idea before the stream of doing a doodle jump kind of game.
Yes. So this was Shannon's idea. And the idea was we just want to do a platformer where you're kind of just constantly moving in an upwards direction. So you're just going from platform to platform. And we're not going to be using tile maps this time, just because we want to do a stream without tile maps and hopefully something that we can finish in one quick go. So sounds good?
Sounds great.
Sounds
Awesome.
good.
Okay. So the first thing that I've kind of prepared for this is I've made a lot of platformers in Arcade, and then there's always this awkward moment where when I'm trying to decide on, you know what, let's get started, and then I'll kind of break down what the problem is. And let's see that in a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a player sprite in our normal way. And what should our protagonist be?
Well, so maybe we should know why they're jumping. Could be an animal that's jumping up.
Could be climbing a beanstalk. Could be trying to get to space. Could be trying to build a space elevator.
Could be climbing a cell phone tower. Could be climbing a tree. Ooh, how about a squirrel climbing up a tree? That sounds fun.
Sure. Squirrels, notable for their jumping from platform to platform as they climb trees.
Blind squirrel are.
Okay, yeah, I can give that a shot. So let's do a squirrel, and we'll see how this turns out. So, gonna give it a little eye.
I think flying squirrels glide, right?
They are gliding, but like they can be gliding to a branch. I guess
That's true. They do need to land eventually.
like hot air pushing them up.
Squirrel.
Yeah, all right. This is gonna be an interesting squirrel.
Looks like a little, what are those dogs called?
Just give it a big tail. I think that's the important squirrel.
A dachshund? I don't know if I spelled that right.
Oh.
Well, pronunciation.
I'm loving this though.
Squirrels are gray.
Some squirrels are gray.
The squirrels I grew up with. Okay, it's a snake.
It's great. I love it.
Okay, prepare for the team's call to pop up.
Oh.
I had to move the little preview. Okay. Shoot, man, I can't even think how to make this not look like a snake. And I have a different approach that I'm going to take this time.
Okay.
Which is by making a generic animal and then making it look like whatever animal I'm trying to create. So I'm going to put in two eyes. Going to give it some head, face area. What are squirrel ears like?
Pointy.
Yeah, like little pointy, and then
flat. Small and pointy.
So we'll do it like that. And that is weird.
I posted some inspiration in the chat.
I can't pull up the chat, but thank you for that. All right, we'll give it some nice little pink ear accents like we always do.
Give it the
Nice.
squirrel Don't they have like big front teeth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that looks awesome. Also kind of looks like a robot.
I was thinking it was the Catman.
Just
Could be a
give me a
robot
sec, guys.
squirrel.
Come on.
Sorry. Looks great.
So one fun little trick to give a little bit of perspective in these 2D sprites is you make one side of the, you shift everything over 1 pixel basically, so it's not symmetrical. So I have ears over here, and I'm going to erase this right here and move the head over. Now it looks like the head is looking slightly to the side, which is a fun little effect. And now I'm going to do the tail. So
The most important part of the squirrel, for sure.
I think the most important part of the squirrel is the brain. Something like that. I'm just going to get rid of
Yeah,
that.
that looks great.
Big squirrel. Yeah.
Okay, do it like that. Nope. And then I'll make the arms just a little darker, I guess.
Sounds great.
Oh, whoops.
Can we do like a little dot nose or something?
Nope, no good. No arms.
That's really neat. Yeah.
It doesn't need arms.
I don't know if there's a way I could do a dot nose.
Yeah, that does sound.
Might look a. I don't know. How's that?
Do the dark purple. C.
Try down and sideways a little. Other way.
Meh.
Yeah, like there.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, this is great.
I think I'm just gonna
Good
stick
squirrel.
as is. So there's our squirrel. And we need to, right now the squirrel is not moving. So I'm going to use the classic controller move my sprite block, but we're going to also click this plus, and we're going to make it so that it's not controlling it in the Y direction. So this will let us go side to side, but we can't go up and down. As you can see in the simulator, I'm pushing those buttons. And I'm going to rename this variable because all good programmers rename their variables. And we're going to call this one, what's the squirrel name?
Nuts. I don't know.
Born.
We're going to name it Gidget, which is not the name of a specific squirrel. Actually, Gidget might have been a mouse.
Gidget's a great squirrel name, though.
It
Someone
is.
Chippendale Rescue Rangers and tell me what Gidget's species was. All right, cool. And
I
I'm
think
also
when the squirrel dies, it should say "aw nuts," though.
yes. Okay, so we've got our squirrel, and let's go ahead and set the gravity so that it's actually falling. And to do that, we're going to set the acceleration. So just like we always say, if you usually when we talk about coordinate systems, Y is up, but in arcade and most computer things, Y is down. So if I'm trying to make the squirrel fall downwards, we want to have a positive gravity. So I'm going to go ahead and change the AY. That's the vertical acceleration. If you've taken a physics class, you know gravity is acceleration. It's a force that's being applied. And I'm going to set it to something pretty high. Let's do 200, which is a nice number. And whoop, there goes Gidget.
It's gone.
And so I promised that we're not going to be doing a tile map today. So I'm going to instead keep Gidget on the screen by using this block, the stay in screen block. So if I turn that on and I select, there's a bunch of different flags in here, but I'm using stay in screen. Well, now Gidget is stuck inside the screen and can't leave. All right, cool. So this is fun, but we still can't jump, which is something that you need to do in a game where jump is in the title. So to jump, we're going to use the A button. So I'm going to drag out this on A button pressed. And to jump, the easiest way to do it is to just set the velocity of your sprite to be negative. So again, that is up in this case, because 0 is at the top of the screen. And this is going to get to the thing that I was talking about earlier. Whoops. Duplicate. Which is, what should we put for the velocity? And my comment is already here, so I'm going to show that real quick.
Oh, wow.
So
I usually just try numbers until it seems good.
yeah. So normally what I do when I do platformers in arcade is I just put in random numbers until I get something that kind of feels right. But that can actually make it pretty difficult to kind of tune your game. A lot of the times it's very nice to have it so that your sprite jumps a specific number of pixels high. So if we try this right now, I'm setting it to -200 and Gidget's going to jump the entire screen, which is a little too high. This formula right here, which I did not come up with, is a nice little helpful thing. It's the square root of 2 times the gravity times the jump height. And jump height in this case is going to be in pixels. So what's a good jump height?
Half the screen?
3 times as tall as Gidget.
Okay.
Screen.
So Gidget is 16, so that would be 48. And to make this a little clearer, I'm also going to make another variable called gravity. And I'm going to set gravity to 200. And I'll put these 2 up top. And we need to use the gravity here now so that we can tweak it later if we want. So I'm going to create.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah,
What
it's
was the handy trick you just did?
if you right click on a set block, you can get a get, and it also works with the get. So if you have a get block, you can right click and then get a set.
Man, learning things.
Yeah, not with the change though. That was a mistake I made earlier in a different stream. All right, so I'm going to pull out my formula again. And luckily, this one is pretty easy to code in blocks. So I'm going to create another variable called jump velocity. And jump velocity is equal to the square root of 2 times gravity times jump height. And now I'm going to use this jump velocity thing down here. But I need to, so this will do nothing right now. And that's because my jump velocity is positive. Like I said, y is negative. So we need to, the up is negative. So we need to negate this. The easiest way to do that is to drag out and just do 0 minus the jump velocity. Now I should see Gidget jumping exactly 48 pixels high.
Nice.
And if we were to make the gravity different, like make it 500, we're still jumping 48 pixels high, which is the nice thing about having these things all in variables, is that it's really easy for us to change it everywhere in our program and have everything still work the way we like.
This is great.
All right, cool. So we've got Gidget, we've got jumping. Let's talk a little about what you do in Doodle Jump, which honestly I haven't played in like the past 5 years, but I have played it before.
So there's platforms coming down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you're basically jumping from platform to platform going up. And correct me if I'm wrong, when you hit a platform, you automatically jump. Is that right?
Oh, I don't know.
I think so.
Joe, you're
So
muted.
it just like, boosts you up to the next.
I think you have to hit it going down.
Okay.
So if you're like going through it, it won't count. But if you're going through it and then land on top of it,
So do you have a jump control at all? Like, can you jump by hitting the button, or you only jump by landing?
I think
I
you
think
only
it
jump by landing.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, that
So
works
do you
great
just-
anyway. We can still use this code. We're just going to not use it on A button pressed. And
Yeah.
instead going to be handling other things. This will actually be really nice because it'll make some other stuff that is typically annoying to do with platformers a little easier.
Yeah.
Which is right now, if I keep pressing A, I will fly, which is fun. But just to kind of illustrate how to fix that normally, I will fix it real quick, and this code will also be usable elsewhere. So you know what? I'm not going to do that. It's hard to do without a tile map. Okay, so let's start creating our platforms, and I'm going to leave this on the workspace, and we'll reuse it later. So we're spawning a bunch of things that are temporary. They're going to be moving, and we want them to be destroyed when we're done with them automatically. Does that sound like anything to you guys?
Maybe like a projectile?
Yeah. So projectiles are a great thing for whenever you have just kind of temporary things that the user interacts with and then they go away. So for now, I think we're just going to be using an on-game update interval every 500 milliseconds. Sounds fine for now. And we're going to be creating projectiles. And the projectile block I've dragged out right now is the projectile from side. And the projectile from side block has a really nice property where I can set the velocity right in here. And it'll automatically choose the side of the screen for me that it should be coming out of. So if I were to go ahead and just choose a random images to start with. So because I gave it a positive y is down, so it automatically starts it from the top. If I were to give this a positive x, well, it's starting it from the left and the top. And if I were to make this x negative, it's now going from the right and the top. So MakeCode's really smart, and it helps you kind of just figure out this thing that's pretty annoying to do by yourself with a bunch of comparison blocks. So I'm going to change Vx back to 0 so that it's coming from the top. And right now, they're all starting here on the left side of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and change that real quick. And to do that, I'm going to use a change block. Or actually, I can use a set block. So I'm going to set the projectile x to b. Grab our random range block. And I'm going to go into scene, and I'm going to grab the screen width. And so this will create them just, all over the screen and falling down. And I'll probably turn them to not be ice cream cones in a second.
Probably.
Yeah. All right, let's do that. How wide should our platform be?
Maybe that wide.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna make this a little thinner, actually. So
It almost looks like a nice cloud platform already.
I'm just gonna make it solid, and then we can play around with the art later.
All right.
Okay, now I've got platforms falling. They're a little too fast, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something to start with.
Yeah.
One thing I'm seeing, though, that's kind of annoying is that these platforms are kind of showing up off the screen. And so there's a pretty easy way for us to fix that, and that is to give just bounds to this pick random. And so what I'm going to do is drag out another minus block. I'm going to do screen width minus something. And because this is 32 wide and we're setting the center of the x, half of 32 is 16. So I want to make sure it's at least 16 for the x, and at most screen.width minus 16. And that should make sure that they're always completely on the screen and not over overlapping at all.
Nice.
Cool. So this is great, but we're not actually jumping right now. So let's try to do that with the overlaps event. And this will let us do our logic for when we hit something, we want to bounce off of it. Cool. So for overlaps, I'm going to go into the sprites category. And I'm going to drag out this onOverlaps block. And so we need to set the two kinds that our overlap event is happening between. We've already got player selected, which is great. Gidget is a player. By the way, did anyone figure out what Gidget is?
I think it's gadget.
Really?
Who you're thinking of? Yeah. And it doesn't say, so I'm assuming it's just another squirrel because it looked like a squirrel.
Okay. Well, Chip and Dale are chipmunks. So
yeah. Oh, maybe
squirrel.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I like the name Gidget, so we're sticking with that.
Gidget is a small white dog in the Pets movie, I think.
Okay. Well, anyway. So we're leaving the first argument as player because Gidget is a player. And then the other one, we're creating projectiles, so we'll set the kind to projectile. And right now, just to do this, we're just going to set the velocity as soon as we hit a platform. And yeah, so this isn't quite what we want. Because you can basically, I don't know, you're bouncing when you hit the bottom of the platform, which we only want to do it if you're hitting the top of the platform. So I have one quick idea for how to check that. I'm not sure if it'll work. We'll see. And I'm going to use an if statement to do this. So I'll drag out an if statement. I'll drag out a comparison block. And what I'm going to check is if Gidget's velocity is positive, so Gidget is heading downwards, and we overlap the platform, then we go up. And I think that should always work because you should never have a negative velocity when you're hitting the bottom of a platform, right?
Right.
Yes.
I guess you could like
You would
go
have
do
to
it from
have
the side,
mixed.
but figure that out later.
Yeah, there might be a case where you are like at the top of your jump and you hit a platform, and the platform's moving faster than you are, and so it would launch you up.
I think we could check to see if Gidget, if the platform is right below Gidget, by checking if the center of the platform is below the bottom of Gidget.
You can check the top of the platform too.
Well, I think that if we just combine these two checks, if we just check the velocity is positive, and we also just check to see if the y of the platform is in like the lower third of Gidget, or just like the lower half, then it should always be good. Because the case I was mentioning before would only happen at the top of your jump, and it would only happen while you're like with the head, I think. I don't know. We'll try this out and see how it feels, and then we can mess around with it.
A lot of the times being a little bit lenient with these checks can make the game a lot more fun anyway.
Yeah. So
nobody likes losing when they're 1 pixel off.
Yeah. Well, some people do.
Okay, yeah. I don't like losing when I'm 1 pixel off. You can't drag it in unless it's in the function.
I don't actually need it. I'm just going to use the Gidget variable. So we have this. If I'm going to check if the Gidget's Vy is less than, greater than 0, because that would be falling. And we want to check the compare Gidget's Y with the Y of the other sprite. So I'm going to drag out a math block, and I'm going to get the difference. Yes, I'm going to get the difference. So I'll subtract them from each other. This one will be Gidget. Okay. Drag out the other sprite. So this is comparing the center of Gidget to the center of the other sprite. And let's see, if Gidget is above the platform, then hers will be lower than the Y of the platform. So let's go ahead and reverse this, the order of these two. Okay, so if the other sprite Y minus Gidget's Y is less than, what should our tolerance be? Like 4? Just try that out.
Sure.
Seems fair.
Yeah, it seems to mostly. I think you teleport through a little bit, but it bounces you up, so it's fine.
Yeah, I think I need to make the jump height a little less.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little too high right now. So let's like take it down by a third. Seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So the reason I'm still playing it is I just want to see if anything feels weird, like if I get into any states that are kind of difficult to deal with or that are causing it to clip. It's a very good idea for you to test your game whenever you've made a small change so that you can know how it impacts it. There's a concept in programming, which I'm sure Daryl could explain better than I could, of testing the smallest change that you make. Just trying to constantly test so that you don't get into a state where your code is weird and you have to throw away a lot of work.
Yeah. And if you make a whole bunch of changes and then you play test, it can be hard to isolate what kind of was throwing things off sometimes.
Oh, okay.
This
So
seems pretty good.
So I think I actually want to compare their the bottom of Gidget.
I was gonna say, I think that
with the top of the platform.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that looks great.
Yeah, that's much better. So before Gidget's feet were kind of going below the platform, which made it look a little awkward. So this seems a bit better. All right, cool.
all right.
Yeah, this feels pretty good. So what's next? We've kind of got the basic game going now. So we don't really have a way to win, or this is more the type of game where you just kind of go infinitely and we like rack up a score. But there's no real change in difficulty or anything yet. There's no score keeping, so those are things that we could do.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I think we need a little tuning for the start, and that would let you turn off stay in screen. So.
Okay. So do you have any ideas for that, Shannon?
Wait, so can you restart the game again? Yeah, okay. So Gidget should start on a platform at the top or near the top of the screen. And like if we just manually created one that matched and then center. Sorry,
All
Daryl?
right.
Gidget started in the middle of a jump. Would that be enough?
I don't think so. I think I like the idea of starting on a platform because then you can bounce on it a few times and see what you need to do before you head up. I think if you started with the velocity, you might not have enough time to react, which is the problem that we have with our falling duck game. Everyone always loses the first like 3 times they play because they haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
All right, so let's try and create a projectile. I'm going to do that. And instead of using the from side block that we were using before, I'm now going to do it with this from sprite, which is a nice little trick. It'll let me go ahead and start it from Gidget. I'm going to use the same velocity, so 0, and I'll set it for 50, and I'll probably move this into a variable in a second. And let me also move that right there. All right, so now at the beginning of the game, we're starting at a platform.
Nice. So now I think if you turn off stay in screen, you won't get the thing where you hit the top of the screen and you like bounce off of it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. So I'm going to turn the stay in screen off, but we still want to handle some of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with stay in screen off, now I can fall off the screen like that, which is good. And the other thing I can do is I can now go off to the side of the screen. I went left, and so now I'm gone again. And so to do those changes, I'm going to use an on-game update without a interval. So just every frame, I'm going to check this out.
Can I ask a quick question? So what would actually happen if we had the camera follow Gidget right now? Would that be break everything?
I have a feeling it would, but I don't know, so let's try it out.
I think it's going to make it impossible because it's going to move the initial
where it's spawning
of the thing each time, and it will immediately move it so you can't get to the next jump.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
oh.
So yeah, if the first one doesn't spawn close enough, it's impossible.
Oh.
So is it destroying the projector as they leave the camera
Yes.
space? Ah.
So if we weren't destroying projectiles, I almost feel like that might work.
The other thing would be that it's always positioning it a full half screen above you. So if it's not within a half, like you only have one at a time possible.
Oh, uh-huh.
Okay, I'm going to do something very JavaScripty right now, which is using min and max blocks to do bounds. So basically, first thing I want to do is make sure that the x can never be less than 0 or greater than the width of the screen, right? Because that would mean that we're off screen, and that's no good.
We do have constraint if you prefer to use that. It makes a little bit more sense to me.
Do we have constraint?
Yep, it's at the bottom, third up, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, okay. So this is a block that's doing what I was about to do, but it makes it much clearer. So I'm going to put in Gidget's x, and we want to constrain it between. So Gidget is 16 pixels wide. Well,
maybe if we do left, we can just do between 0 and screen width minus Gidget width.
Yeah, that's better.
I feel like it's not bad if he's half off screen though. You'll still know where he is.
Either way.
Okay. What? Oh, I see. Yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see. So what was happening there, it was just immediately moving it over each frame by half the size.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay, cool. So we've constrained the x now. Now we want to handle the case where Gidget goes off the bottom of the screen, which should cause the game to end. Or we could do lives, but for now, let's just make the game end.
And mute.
Let's see, duplicate this, and we'll say if Gidget's top is greater than the height of the screen, then we're going to call game over lose. So let's try that out real quick. And there we go. So this is, we're using greater than here because, again, I feel like I've said it a million times now, but y is positive when going downwards. So if the top is greater than the screen height, that means that Gidget is completely below. And you might have seen that when we got the game over, Gidget isn't actually below. And that's just because the screen hasn't drawn yet. Gidget is in fact below, but because we're doing this in an on-game update, which runs before drawing runs, the game will end before the actual drawing of Gidget off screen. All right. There's one other thing I want to do real quick, which is, so we've got a pretty high gravity, which is nice because it makes it feel very bouncy, but you can get into a very high velocity if you fall from a high thing on the top of this, the top of the screen. So to make that a little more manageable, I'm going to give Gidget a terminal velocity. And the way we're going to do that is just by constraining it again. So we're constraining the x right now. I'm going to do the same thing, but with the vy. And I'm going to be constraining it between so the maximum up velocity should be the negative jump velocity, right? And maybe we'll just reuse jump velocity and see if that feels okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Upper bound.
Oh, you're setting the x instead of the v.
Yeah, okay, so it's definitely falling slower now.
Maybe 2 times as a minimum?
I'm going to do 1.5 times. I think 2 times might be a little too much.
I was thinking actually the opposite direction, because maybe he's a little bit of a flying squirrel, and so gliding is actually something Gidget could do.
Maybe that can be an upgrade you get.
That's true.
You unlock his wingsuit, which is just his ability to learn how to use his... Oh, sorry. Yes.
Gidget, like Gadget, is the she of it. Cool. All right, so we've got the basic things now. And sorry I cut you off there, Joey. So you were saying we would have a power up?
Oh, I was just saying that's a possibility to unlock the flying squirrel abilities.
I think another idea is our world, I think, would look a little bit cooler if we had a tree as a background image.
Also a good option.
And then we also need score.
Yeah, so the score was what I was looking for. Thanks, star, Shannon. So we're not actually keeping track of how high you get. And the easiest way I can think of to do this is we could do a point every time you jump, but that's a little weird. It means that you would get points for just kind of staying in place, which is, I guess, fine, but I don't know, it seems a little weird to me. It's not, I think, what the player would expect. Instead, I'm going to count the platforms you have passed. And there's a nice and easy way to do that, which is we have the auto destroy flag on for our projectiles. It's on by default for all projectiles. So they're getting destroyed when they go off the screen. And so I can use this on destroyed event to change the score every time one gets destroyed. So every time a sprite of kind projectile is destroyed, I'm going to go into info and we'll do change score by 1. Nice. And now my score's going up. Cool. All right, let's do some world building. Okay, so are we set with climbing up a tree?
Yes.
Okay. So let me look through the images thing to kind of get an idea of what we can do.
If we want to do an actual scroll, we can do that like I did in the hot air balloon one, but that gets annoying and it's kind of fickle. Where I just have the two images and I like push them through. It might be easier just to use projectiles again.
I don't think that'll work.
Little lines. Okay.
Because it needs to be tied to the velocity. So if you were to just have projectiles, you would just, even when you're falling downwards, it would look like you're going up.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually, I guess that would be how it is.
And that is consistent with the platforms.
Yeah.
Because the platforms are going down, and so are so would the tree, I guess. If we think,
I think are probably tree branches, right? So
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, so we'll try some things out. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the background color to just be sky colored. Cool. And my idea for the how to do the tree is we're going to just create, like Joey suggested, giant projectiles. And you know what? I'm going to rename this variable real quick just to make it a little clearer what this is. This is our starting platform. So I'm not actually reusing this anywhere, but it'll make it so that if someone comes to my code, they'll be able to tell what's happening here in the beginning and why we're just creating a platform. It documents it a little bit. All right. So in this on-game update, I'm going to create another platform, and this one is going to be from the side, just like the other. That. And I'm going to make a new variable, and I'm going to call this tree section. And that name will make a little more sense in a second. And so right now, these are acting just like platformers. I'm actually going to go ahead and set the a flag on this so that it's just decoration. And to do that, I'm going to set the ghost flag to be on. So with the ghost flag being on, even though this has the same kind as the other projectiles, that's them on the left over there. Gidget will just pass right through them.
They will still count for score right now, so maybe it is worth just changing the kind.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, yeah, scratch that. We'll do the kind. And cool. Now they don't get counted as points. All right. And now we're going to try and draw a section of a tree. And I want this to be nearly as wide as the screen. So I'm going to leave it, I'm going to put the height as like, I don't know, 32. And I really don't know if this is going to work, but we'll see. So the screen is how wide, Daryl?
160.
Yeah. So I'm going to do 160 minus like 10 pixels on either side. So that would be 140. And just to see what this looks like, I'm just going to fill it with. All right, interesting. Okay.
Probably need to set the Z index too, huh?
Yeah, so we'll set the Z index and we'll set the X. So first, let's set the Z. Daryl, what does Z index do?
Controls what order the sprites are seen on the screen. So a lower Z index pushes it farther away from the viewer, and a higher Z index pushes it closer to the viewer. And this is useful for making sure that Gidget doesn't get covered up by the tree.
And so I was going to set the Z index of Gidget, but I'm thinking actually it is better to set it to the Z of the tree section, because then it'll also show up behind the platforms. Okay, so that's the Z depth. We also want to set the X, and we want to center it in the screen. So we're going to set the X to math. Going to go into scene, get the screen width, and we'll divide by 2. Cool.
Awesome.
It's a little weird at the start, but it's sort of working. And I'm also going to go to these platforms right now, and I'm going to make them green, like leaves. Cool. And so we can't actually tell that this is moving downwards right now because it's all just a solid color. So what I'm going to do is embarrass myself by drawing some tree-like patterns. So I'm going to try and make this look kind of like wood veneer. Oh, no, that's no good.
Looks just like my coffee table.
Well, that's the idea. So these things usually just have a bunch of kind of whirly patterns that follow each other but deviate a little bit in between.
Around the knot.
Yes. So Daryl is definitely the expert on all things that have to do with woodworking on this podcast. And not podcast, but live stream.
I don't think that's true. Maybe.
Daryl, you got any cool projects you're working on?
4 of us.
Working on a table for my table saw.
Very meta.
Best I can do is little wood in the 3D printer. So they have like wood filament.
What? Really? Like
Yeah,
pulp?
they mix in wood particle like stuff into the plastic. It's weird.
That's interesting.
All right. This looks real bad.
I have a feeling it's gonna look too regular.
Yeah, you need multiple images.
I'm almost thinking you can do just little streaks here and there, and we can sort of get the point.
It's looking less like a tree and more like tiramisu.
Tiramisu's great though, so.
Okay.
Maybe try a darker color?
All right. So like what? Like purple?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna use a bigger brush this time, not make that same mistake.
So I'm thinking less streaks, just like a few here and there.
I think if you make a few here and there, it's not gonna.
But you know.
Like this, you mean?
Yeah, I was thinking they don't go the full height.
How instead of this, I just do like features. So I'm just gonna do a knot. And you know what? I'm just gonna do a weird pattern, and I'm gonna do multiple of these, and it'll look kind of cool.
Yeah.
The caterpillar.
It is.
I would buy wood like that if you ever find any.
Yeah.
Got it. I'll keep you abreast of my expeditions into the Amazon.
Excellent.
I like this pattern a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going less for realism here and more just for cool kind of.
Yeah.
It's the essence of what a tree is.
Yep. My thoughts exactly.
What kind of wood is your favorite, Daryl?
I really like walnut, even though that's a very popular wood.
So
The most mainstream kind of wood.
It's pretty mainstream. Pine is probably the most mainstream. I don't like oak though. I've decided.
What's wrong with oak?
I just don't think the pattern is as interesting. It almost looks pixelated. I don't know if that makes. It's a little weird.
But he's so helpful, and he gives you your starter Pokemon.
Yeah. What's your favorite wood out of the starter or the professors' names?
I only know ash. I And is he a professor?
Ash was not a professor.
No, I think there's
I'm
mahogany.
not 100% sure Ash finished grade school because he leaves when he's like 13, and I never see him in school in the TV show.
Maybe he's granted like an honorary doctorate afterwards, after he's caught them all.
Well, the show just kind of goes on forever, and he never ages. So I'm not sure if we'll ever achieve that doctorate.
Couldn't you just do a pick random or if random?
I'm not going to make it random, though.
Oh, I see.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm creating a list of images. These are going to be the tree sections. So I've got this one right here, and oh, I just deleted the one I just drew.
I was
back.
gonna say.
All right. And I'll go back to arrays, array block, or is there an empty array block?
Yes, at the bottom.
All right, and I don't want it to be random because there's only 2, so I'd rather it just be alternating. So I'm going to make a tree index. And the tree index will start at 0, which I don't need to do because all numbers start at 0 in MakeCode. Drag these out of the way so I have some more room. All right, and so whenever I create a tree section, I want to use the next image. So to do that, I am going to go into arrays and I'm going to get the value at the current tree index. So from tree sections, I'm going to change it to tree index, and then get the value. Oh, whoops. And then I'm going to
Can you guys hear the squirrel outside my window?
no.
Is it Gidget?
Squirrel chirping at me.
And I need to change the tree index. So I'm going to take this, do a math. And just like we often do, I'm going to be using the remainder block to make sure that I don't go over the maximum value. And so the second argument is going to be the length of the list. And change this to tree sections. And now we should see them alternating.
Nice.
Cool.
I like it.
Yeah, it doesn't really look like a tree, but whatever. We know the truth. So
It's not a tree.
what I'm going to do right now is rough the edges up a little bit. Mix this up over here. And this should at the very least look interesting.
I like it.
All right. Well, so I could keep the stream going for a little bit and make it so the tree starts at the bottom of the screen and you don't start in the middle of air with a tree hurtling downwards towards you. But we're kind of at the end of the time here, and we did kind of end up with a working game. So we've got everything that this game needs to be playable. And it is kind of fun. I've been playing it, so you guys have seen me.
Yeah.
Didn't I look delighted whenever I was
looks like you're having fun.
testing?
Yeah.
All right. I also think we hit the maximum number of references to pop culture that we've had on a stream so far, which is pretty good.
Not sure they're correct references, but
Oh yeah. So what should the name of this be?
Go Gidget.
Yes.
You draw a little GoPro on his back.
All right, adding another pop culture reference.
I feel like all of these references also date us, but it's fine.
Are there commas?
I
We're just gonna do go Gidget.
don't think so.
I don't know.
No, I think there are commas. I'm gonna do go Gidget. Because otherwise it's go Gidget.
You're right. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Once again, I'm Richard at Richard on the MakeCode forum.
I'm Daryl at Darzu on the MakeCode forum.
I'm Joey at JWonderl on the MakeCode forum.
And I'm Shannon at Shakao on the MakeCode forums.
And tune in tomorrow and every weekday at 1:00 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll do this again. All right. See y'all later.